Well, hello, metalhead. What's up, my man?
Hey man, how's it going? Uh, Fresh off a fantastic two-night stand with Metallica, Friday, Sunday, big shows, lots of great tunes, fantastic set list, different set list. In case anyone is wondering why would you go see the same band 2 nights in a row? It's totally different concert, different opening bands. First night was Pantera, was the Mammoth, Wolf Van Halen opened up, and then Pantera with guys I have a lot of connections to through fantasy football. Interestingly enough, the band Pantera itself, Zach Wilde and Charlie Benante filling in for the late departed brothers, Dimebag Darrell and Vinnie Paul Abbott. Vinnie Paul Abbott was in the Alice in Chains leagues for a number of years. The won the title, has been on my radio show multiple times before his passing a couple of years ago. The trophy in that league is named after him. Well, Scott Ian from Anthrax is also in that band, is in that league, and his drummer, Charlie Benante, is sitting in for his old, friend, passed away friend. He's also been on the program. Meanwhile, Zach Wilde, who is great friends with Dimebag Darrell, the guitar player who passed away, is filling in for him. He had a show on Sirius XM Fantasy early in the days and has been a guest on my show multiple times. So lots of connections there. And then on to Metallica, great first night, good mix of tunes, old and new. And the second night, it was a band called Ice Nine Kills, which is kind of like a horror movie / band, I guess.
A Kurt Vonnegut reference too.
Yeah, very interesting act. I don't know that it translated to the arena as well as it does to the smaller theaters, but followed up by a Five Finger Death Punch. Not a huge fan, but it was all right. And then more Metallica. It was fantastic. So I have now spent 12 hours doing something that was non-football related over the weekend, and I'm not sure that was my best choice work-wise, but it was a fantastic choice life-wise.
Well, you probably won't get to do it again until at least April, so we know that
this is true.
So we know that you got your last breath in before you submerge.
I just want to say, came off the expo the week before. That probably adds to all the stuff. Great hearing everyone who commented on this podcast. Had a lady walk up to me. It was great to walk up and just like, Calvin Austin, feel or fuck it.
Yeah.
Like, that was how we started the conversation. It was great. Had a number of people stop and mentioned this pod. So thanks to everyone for listening and supporting.
We certainly appreciate that. So, speaking of big shows, Tyjae Spears had a little bit of a big show for a preseason game. Does he have legitimate fantasy value this year in redraft? You feeling that idea?
For a guy without a knee, he runs like 20 miles an hour. I don't know. Well, if he does, what about Julius Chestnut, who came in and totally dominated? Look, I think he does. I think some super late round, if you're deep enough, if you're the Derrick Henry investor, I think that's not a totally unwise thing. Although I don't know that Spears would be expected to take that. He's not a plug and play option, I don't think, but he'd have I think a role, and he looked pretty damn good. So yeah, I'm not like jumping in as like expecting him to be a weekly contributor kind of situation, but not an unreasonable handcuff.
Yeah, I think he's definitely reasonable to pair as a redundancy option, and I do think that if Henry gets hurt, he will be the lead back. They will probably use Chestnut some. I think they were hoping a little bit with I'm trying to remember the back that they brought in, who was the veteran, but I can't recall the name. Jock Patrick. I think they were hoping Jock Patrick could be a little something.
I think a lot of people have hoped that.
Yeah, but I think Chestnut's probably going to wind up, retaining that job.
He's stuck around a couple of years now, so I think that's true.
Yeah. So, all right. Baker Mayfield. How about this? Feel it or fuck it. Baker Mayfield doesn't beat out Kyle Trask for the starting job.
I want to say fuck it because I think they're going with Mayfield. I think everything we're hearing right now is lip service. But, I mean, there's something to be said for not throwing interceptions in practice, which apparently Baker Mayfield does more than Kyle Trask. I'm saying they're going with Baker Mayfield just for the veteran presence. But, like, if things aren't going well early on, it's going to be a short leash.
Yeah, I would say this. I'd say I'm only feeling it if the Buccaneers go, fuck it, we're tanking. and they're almost pseudo tanking having Baker Mayfield, whether they know it or not.
Well, are they pseudo tanking with Kyle Trask? I mean, what is Kyle Trask?
No, they're totally tanking if they're
okay.
They're
all right, I see
Kyle
what you're saying.
Trask.
Right.
That's like we're getting a quarterback next year, kind of like the Colts going with Sam Ellinger.
Right.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. Baker's at least we're going to compete this year, and until they go 2-6. All right, we're going to do a little bit of a draft game here and at least profile somewhere around 8 to 9 rounds worth of stuff here. So just some thoughts that I'm looking at ADP from a variety of ADP sources, and who are you feeling at the top of round 1, Bob? If it's between Justin Jefferson, Christian McCaffrey, Austin Ekeler, you got to choose one. Who are you feeling? Why?
Honestly, this is really tough because so we've got to get out of best ball mindset and into redraft mindset, and so I'm going to try and do that. I have shares of all those guys at first pick overall over the course of 100 plus best ball drafts. If I'm sitting here going into a redraft league, my reflexive answer is Christian McCaffrey. The right answer is Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, I think the safest play is absolutely Jefferson, but I'm also on the McCaffrey kick myself because I'm looking at the player who has the best chance to put up record production at a position where the gap between him and the rest of the position is strong. And McCaffrey's that guy. And I think that when I look at players who've had record or like top 20, top 30 yards from scrimmage production all time, McCaffrey did it like 4 or 5 years ago. And usually there's a lot of players on the list who've done it twice, and usually it's either with a second team or later on in their career. And so I'm thinking McCaffrey could be that guy to continue that trend.
So the hair splitter here is, and like it was great last year. Before McCaffrey came to San Francisco, the Niners ranked 19th in the NFL in points scored per game. They were at 20.3. They were 19th in yards per game at 340. After his arrival, they ranked 29.8, so second in points, fourth with 379 yards per game. Over the final 6 weeks of the season, McCaffrey had 101 carries, 505 yards, 4 touchdowns, caught 27 passes, 262 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Some of that success was probably Brock Purdy related. I don't want to be dismissive of him, but a lot of it was McCaffrey related. So I'm all in on that. And then I listened to our buddy Dwayne McFarland, who had some pretty stark numbers about the point differentials for McCaffrey with Elijah Mitchell on the field. And that total per game, the points per game goes from over 20 down to below 17. And so that puts him in human territory. So that's why I think Jefferson's probably a safer play. But anyone who played Jefferson late last season says he's not that safe every damn week.
Yeah, and I would argue that McCaffrey didn't know the offense as well as the way that he's going to know now. But I would say this: I wouldn't even be mad at anybody if they're thinking I like Jamar Chase,
right?
And or Ekeler, but they're all great. But McCaffrey's the one with the upside that I'm looking at.
The switch for Jamar Chase we saw last year was that Zach Taylor realized, after he came back from the injury, instead of using him, primarily on deep passes, they used him in a more varied, way with crossers and a little more over the middle stuff, and he excelled at that, and he has great big playability after the catch. So still third of that group for me.
Yeah, Jamar Chase can do everything. I think he's probably the most versatile receiver in the league. Mid-round one, if none of those guys are available to you, and you're looking at Cooper Kupp, you're looking at Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, who are you feeling?
I'm totally feeling Cooper Kupp. Look no further than I guess there are other older guys in there, but Cooper Kupp, for the reason we stated, that weekly average fantasy scoring. I mean, when he's been on the field and healthy the last 2 years, he's dominated in that regard. And it's been consistent production. I feel like Matthew Stafford being healthy. I feel that, Matthew. Stay healthy, young man. Unless, I'll take my Stetson Bennett chances for sure.
No disagreements there from me either. I mean, I would probably be between Kupp and Hill, even though Kelce is a safe play, even in PPR. But I just look at the reason maybe not Hill is some of the off-field stuff, and you wonder about that. Is it going to be a game or two? Our defense is going to catch up to what Tua Tagovailoa is doing, to the standpoint that there were a couple teams last year that really protected the middle of the field to force Tagovailoa to try and throw it in the intermediate and vertical ranges to the sideline, and he didn't have the arm velocity to really nail those throws, and he was trying to force balls into Hill very unsuccessfully on a couple of those games. Can a lot of teams copy that? That's up for question, but I think more than what we realize. It's
the argument. The argument for Kelce, though, is to say fuck it to Kupp and Hill is, what we talked about with McCaffrey, that likely leverage over the field. You're going to get that in spades. I would say, though, like, just unless it's a tight end premium league, and we're not discussing that here. What's the order I would draft these guys in, just in a vacuum? Like if they all played the same position. Look, Travis Kelce is a top 10 wide receiver. I think last year's numbers would have put him at about 7 or so. Yeah. So there's something to be said there. But if I'm going for the consistent weekly production for me, that's where I'm feeling Kupp.
Yeah, I'm with you. And to me, Kelce's a guy that, as great as he is, and in Dynasty, I've had him as a cornerstone for as many years as he's been in the league. There's still a couple of guys on this board much later that I'm so excited about. That Kelce is just, I'm like, I'll take my chances at the tight end position.
I agree with that.
So moving on to round 2.
We'll get there.
You're staring at Patrick Mahomes. You got Devontae Adams, Derrick Henry, all guys that could be leading their respective positions. Even Henry, who, offensive line sucks. Everybody's looking at, their offensive line's bad. Dude, their offensive line was bad last year, and he was still RB4. So it's like you get the news late, and now you got scared while you were in the middle of the, shark-infested waters with him anyway, and he was swimming right past them like they were nothing. So I don't know. Mahomes, Adams, Henry.
I feel him in that reverse order. I'm riding the Henry horse until it keels over dead. The volumes there, especially if I took one of those, if I ended up, let's say going Jefferson early as well. I mean, that adds to that vibe if I'm coming around the next round. Like if I drafted Kelce, I'd consider Mahomes. I think you see that a lot. And Adams, I think we're being totally dismissive. Maybe his ADP will rise after people say, Jimmy Garoppolo is not as horrible as we pretended he was. It doesn't really matter. Devontae Adams wins every single route. I don't care what the quarterback can throw. They will have him run the routes, and he will win those routes, right? I mean, you're not gonna slow Devontae Adams down. So I think it's perfectly defensible to take him. I'm taking that volume play at running back, and I don't see signs of decline in Henry at this point. Still broke off the long runs. That's one of the things he's really good at and has been good at, uniquely so, given his size. I'm all in on that.
Yeah, it's funny. I think I'll go ahead just for the exercise because I'm taking Henry a lot in that range. For all those reasons. But and with Adams, listen, he's playing with a quarterback who's played in that offense, who spent his developmental years in New England in Josh McDaniels' offense. So it's not like they're going to have trouble getting on the same page as much as somebody else would. And he did help Deebo Samuel become a valuable fantasy wide receiver, and Deebo Samuel as a route runner is a fraction of what Devontae Adams is. So totally defensible pick. But if I'm going upside, and I'm thinking who's got the possibility to have a record year, and I look at the Kansas City Chiefs offense, and I think that the wide receivers collectively are the best group of wide receivers that Patrick Mahomes has ever had. From Justin Ross and Richie James as backups to what you've got with Sky Moore and maybe Kadarius Toney. So I think that even if Toney kind of flakes out or Moore just turns out to be just so-so and the camp sounds great, but he still needs another year, Richie James can get it done. And I think Justin Ross, when Patrick Mahomes keeps saying this guy's different than anything that we have, what that means to me is that he has enough speed like Marquez Valdes-Scantling, but he can actually catch the football on a consistent basis. He runs routes better than Scantling and can give you a little of the slot receiver look. He's kind of a young Hakeem Nicks in that regard, where you can match up one-on-one and he can dominate. So I could see, Mahomes last year, just with those two big pieces of the pie, who were the only fantasy options in the passing game, and Juju Smith-Schuster and Travis Kelce, he was like, 50 yards shy of what you were seeing in terms of Breeze Manning territory of 5,500 yards. I think this is the year that maybe the Chiefs spread the ball around a little bit more. We have 3 fantasy values as starters in the passing game, not just 2. All right, so round 3. Ramondre Stevenson, Devonta Smith, Mark Andrews, or Chris Olave?
All of them fine. Obvious concerns with Stevenson. Fuck him. Not going there. It's really interesting because I've heard people make really strong arguments both ways since the arrival of Ezekiel Elliott that Stevenson is still the guy. And including last year, Damian Harris was there and missed 5 games, but for the most part, Stevenson was still very good. I can remember reading in my rookie scouting portfolio the year Stevenson came out about his pass catching prowess and his nimble feet and whatnot. So all that is good, and he's demonstrated that. Andrews, super solid. I think this offense is going to be fantastic. Olave might be the right answer. Devontae is the right answer for me. I'm totally feeling him. I think, they call, A.J. Brown clearly viewed as the one there. I think it's more of a 1A, 1B situation. And I'm not really entirely sure when all is said and done who the A and B are going to be. Sorry, A.J. Brown people. I'm going Devontae Smith here, feeling it.
I can see that. And Devontae Smith's got the sizzle. Olave certainly is the safest pick for me. To me, he's the safest pick. I'm going to go Stevenson here. And only because as much as I still like Ezekiel Elliott as a player in terms of what he can do all around, the New England Patriots, on average, Jason Wood at Football Guys did a tremendous spotlight there on basically Stevenson and the Patriots run game. And over a 22-year period, regardless of who the fucking coordinator was, they ran the ball and averaged 467 carries per season over a 22-year period. They're going to run the ball. Whether they're good or bad, whoever their quarterback is, they're pounding the rock. And Stevenson's not getting 300 of those 400 carries. More likely, probably 250 at best, and it's probably going to be 200 with 2 to 3 other players splitting the final, the final 200 out of that. But then in the passing game, it is probably going to be Stevenson. I still don't think Stevenson, at worst, I think is going to be at 70 targets. He could be at 90 targets. And I think they value that. And certainly, yes, Elliott's red zone prowess, his pass protection skills, his ability to run with closeout carries and protect the ball well, that may put a limit on what Stevenson's ceiling can be, especially in the goal line red zone. But I still think you're looking at 8 to 10 touchdowns for Ramondre Stevenson. So if I'm looking for a running back 2 or I'm thinking, I want one running back, I'm going, what do they call it? Hero RB, even though they like to do it, even though they like, or the first round exception I used to do, or the one round variation in the upside down drafting, whatever, or do the opposite, as Paul Charchian used to say even before me. That could be the guy that I wouldn't mind taking a chance on, is Stevenson in round 3, because everybody seems to be down. You might even get him around 4 at this rate.
Quick thought on Olave. I think I agree with you. Maybe he's the safest play. I talked to a couple beat writers, Catherine Terrell from ESPN being one of them recently, who kind of suggested that maybe we need to see a little bit how it plays out with Derek Carr. Is it that locked in, every week high volume role? She wasn't sure. I don't know who else claims that. He said, thinking about Michael Thomas in the back of his mind, hoping that all my late round shares come through on that. But honestly, I think Olave probably is like a super safe play. But I don't know that Devontae isn't safe as well.
Yeah, I would say both of them are very safe. I just know that Olave can do one thing better than Devontae can. So when I look at all around on film, I like Olave a little more. All right, speaking of safe, Amari Cooper, then Calvin Ridley, or Josh Allen, round 4.
Boy, so I've been really big on a Cooper going all off season long, right? In all my drafts, I've been diving in. I feel like we like maybe overlooked him last year. Certainly we did, because you look at his finish last year. He was a wide receiver one without an ideal quarterback situation. So I'm tempted to go there. I'm also not I'm not against Josh Allen here. There was an interesting stat I ran across talking to Mark Gahn from the Buffalo News over the weekend. Josh Allen's one of just 4 players, the only quarterback with at least 400 rushing yards and 6 rushing TDs in each of the past 5 seasons. He joins a crew that includes Derrick Henry, Nick Chubb, and Ezekiel Elliott. I mean, that's pretty interesting. That's pretty consistent additional production on top of the great passing numbers he puts up. So I think Cooper would have been my answer, and I don't like to overplay reports out of training camps and moment by moment things, but pretty consistently the reporting has been Deshaun Watson isn't looking great. I think he'll be fine, but I think it's enough to move Josh Allen up ahead. And I think if we're going in the 4th round, that's value on Josh Allen. I usually see him going in the 3rd.
Yeah, my stubborn side would say I'm sticking with Cooper. The little voice in my head that is probably saying Allen's the safe play, but I probably already went Mahomes, so
right.
So I'm waiting. So I'm probably going to go Ridley here, even though that goes against my sensibilities a little bit, but Ridley might be the play there. All 3, not too bad. I wish I could. Yeah, I'm not going to go
There's no clear-cut fuck it in any of these, Matt.
Yeah, there really aren't. And that's what makes this fun, because we got to take a stand here somewhere. So
it's hair-splitting, man.
I'm going to stick with Cooper, because I'm going down with the ship. So
it's hair-splitting, and you'll be surprised to learn I don't get a lot of practice at splitting any hair.
I get a little bit of practice here and there, Matt. You can imagine that. About as much practice as Yo-Yo Ma probably does have on the cello. So Alec Pierce Dameon Pierce. Alec Pierce. Maybe that's what my hope is. By next year, he'll be in round 5 spot. Alec Pierce after a year with Anthony Richardson. But Dameon Pierce. Then we have that Sanders kid in Carolina that you like, and then J.K. Dobbins. If you're going running back 2 at this stage, or starting your 0 RB upside down, do the opposite. Who you going with?
I'm starting to feel Dobbins a little bit more. Like, I think of these guys, he's the one who has the upside to finish his as inside the running back 1 ranks pretty handily. I mean, maybe they all do. Increasingly concerned, again, like, you don't want to overstate the case when you see things over, like we're using the whole offseason long massive information, the data continuum, but the latest data, tells you the offensive line is not playing well for Carolina. That's got to be a concern, right? Every year after every season, I can't remember last season. I didn't kick myself in the ass and say, oh man, offensive lines matter. Right. So I think Sanders will be fine volume wise. I wonder if this offense isn't going to struggle enough early on. Dameon Pierce, I think maybe I have a little bit of a blind spot for. It's not necessarily a Devin Singletary fear. It's just, lousy offense. That said, often lousy offenses correlate to guys, running backs, getting a lot of, well, look at last year, right? It was not a good offense last year, and Dameon Pierce was just fine. So I might have a blind spot, but I do think that, and look, he's an explosive runner as well, but I think J.K. Dobbins, maybe I'm just overly hopeful that we'll get the full Dobbins experience. And if we get that, he's going to be a phenomenal back, super explosive play. And the fact that he is back in 11-on-11, has resumed those drills, lends some confidence in both the health and the financial situations that he's been wading through.
Yeah, as I mentioned to a certain Harris last week, I think that I think my tinfoil hat theory is that they knew that J.K. Dobbins wasn't going to get the contract. He knew he wasn't going to get the contract, but they want to give him the star treatment without the media barraging Harbaugh with, why are you giving star treatment to a guy who hasn't really earned it supposedly. But they saw the film and they know what they got in him, and he's the answer. Though I do believe Dameon Pierce could have 60 receptions this year and be a huge component of the passing game if they let him. But yeah, if we're looking for safest, it's Dobbins. But Pierce, I think, has a little bit higher floor than Sanders. All right, so we're still in round 5 though, and say we're looking at the receiver end of the spectrum. You got Scary Terry McLaurin, the clap catch extraordinaire. You've got, who he's the bumblebee of wide receivers, like just by science and physics, the laws of physics, he just defies it in terms of being able to catch a ball, just like a bumblebee defies physics of flight. Shouldn't be able to do it. DJ Moore, running back with receiver skills. Christian Watson coming on strong. Lots of love for Jordan Love, it seems to be. And then you got Drake London, who is like every fantasy analyst I know who semi-watches film seems to love this guy. I like Drake London. I think he was my number 2 receiver last year. But, it's fascinating how much love there is for a guy who's kind of produced, So where are we at with this quartet?
Okay, so for me, I totally feel McLaurin. I mean, he has been consistently productive over the course of his time in Washington. Regardless of quarterback, I'm going to hand him his quarterback proof card right now, officially joining the ranks of normally Texans wide receivers are the guys who drive this, but I guess we could say Allen Robinson had that at one time with Jacksonville as well. But he's just been super productive. I guess you could make the same argument for DJ Moore. And maybe, you're hoping in both cases, are there questions about the quarterback? Probably yes. I mean, we still have to see Justin Fields come on as a passer. I think we all expect that to happen. Justin Watson is, maybe the high-end play here for me. Like if I'm swinging – Christian Watson. Yeah, I'm sorry. If I'm swinging for the upside, he's the upside play. If I'm swinging for the fence in this round – if I just need a guy that I think is going to have a really solid season, it's going to be Terry McLaurin. London, I have concerns about just the overall offensive volume for Atlanta. And, they're amassing some great playmakers. I would like to see Arthur Smith use that ginormous brain of his to find ways to get them all involved. And Desmond Ritter's a question mark for me as well. It's McLaurin for me, Watson if I'm swinging for the fence.
Yeah, and I think that's a good way to split it out, because if you've already taken some risks in the draft up, in the first 5 rounds, say you've taken 1 or 2 risks, I would say McLaurin is the guy you go with. If you still want to take a little bit more of a risk, I think Moore is the guy that has more upside than McLaurin, with a slightly lower floor, but not too much lower. And you're right, like Watson is the highest upside guy with a low, and it goes just, I think the order of, Moore and Watson have the most upside. London has maybe more upside than McLaurin, but has a lower floor than McLaurin. So, yeah, I'm with you. I would say if I'm playing a little more moderate to conservative, it's Moore. If I'm playing a little more risk-oriented, it's Watson. So, round 6, we've got ourselves some Christian Kirk, Brandon Ayuk, and Tyler Lockett. Which one of these guys, I'm just curious to you, which one of these guys do you look at and go, how the hell did they drop to round 6?
Pretty much all of them, but none more so than Lockett for me. I mean, feeling that, 5 seasons, at least 8 touchdowns. 2 of those seasons had 10 touchdowns. I feel like everyone views him as a huge boom-bust play, and he is to some degree that, but also he booms more than he busts, it seems. I like the way this offense is going. I'm counting on Geno Smith to continue getting the job done. I do think, the buzz about Ayuk, remember when they drafted him, they had pretty high expectations for him. And I think he's starting to manifest those expectations. And I'm fine with Kirk here as well, but definitely that's my order. It's Lockett by far for me. When I see Lockett sitting there in the 6th round, smash, right? Yeah. Ayuk, maybe there's another player there similar that I have to give it some thought. And same with Kirk. I'm getting a little bit of a blind spot for him because I'm so Ridley focused, but there's going to be ample meat on the fantasy bone for Kirk as well.
Yeah, I have Kirk even with Ridley in pretty much yardage and touchdowns. I just have Kirk with a little bit more in receptions than Ridley, and only for this year. But Ayuk, I took in the 6th round of a Keep 3 league this weekend, and Lockett, yeah, he's my top guy. I think people are just scared of Geno Smith suddenly turning into a pumpkin. I think that's kind of where they're at, and that's why they have fears with him, and or they're so age focused that they see the number and freak out rather than looking at the tape. All right, so
He's not done yet.
No.
Said a guy who also feels like he's not done yet.
No, you are definitely.
I got a minute.
You are definitely the Lockett, of the fantasy space. I'll put it that way. So I would say you're more the. I'm thinking you might be more the Aaron Rodgers of the fantasy space. So there we go.
My ayahuasca here.
Yeah, there we go.
Ayahuasca.
There we go. All right. So Bijan, who is in this group? Which running back do you think is the best value relative to their round in ADP? Bijan in round 1, Jahmyr Gibbs in round 3, Zach Charbonnet in round 9, or the other rookie, Tyjae Spears in round 14?
This is clearly a trick question because there is only one answer. I am the hammer. Jahmyr Gibbs is my nail. I am pounding him in round 3. Look, I feel like I'm so invested in this that I'm almost bound to be wrong. But and I'll further acknowledge I like the 4th round Jahmyr Gibbs way better than I like 3rd round Jahmyr Gibbs. I mean, I thought he was a huge steal in the 4th round. I get that he's going to split. I think we did the maths over at footballdiehards.com. And granted, it was an unusual year of running back production in Detroit. I don't know if anyone's getting, they had a lot of touchdowns. Jamal Williams with his 17. So, but you give like 55% of that running back production to Jahmyr Gibbs that they got last year, and he's, I think, running back 8, running back 7, something like that. I'll take that in round 3. Also, I thought something interesting, again, to bring up our smart friend Dwayne McFarland. He threw out a week or so ago on Twitter, reminding everyone Christian McCaffrey and Alvin Kamara only got, I think they got about 30% of the carries for their offenses as rookies and still finishes running backs 3 and 9 in fantasy respectively. So I'm all in on Gibbs. And Bijan, I think there's fair concerns, again, about the volume, this offense, just the overall volume, right? I mean, is Atlanta going to be running a ton of plays? And are they going to have the passing volume? I talked to Billy Musio, player profiler, and that was his argument. He wasn't arguing against Bijan Robinson, but if you're splitting a hair, is he going to really, I mean, is 60 catches like realistic for him? I'm not sure it is in this offense.
30 might be realistic for him.
Right.
Yeah, and I get that. I'm like, talent-wise, a dynasty league, top 5 player to pick now. Easy. Redraft, no, I'm totally with you on that. I don't think he's a value at round 1. He's at the top of he's at his ceiling. You're drafting him at the top of his value, and I think that's not wise.
Well, Gibbs, you are everybody in round 1, though, by the way. So I mean,
that's true.
That's the round 1
game. That's true. But I think that the floor is too low. Gibbs in round 4, I would take. Absolutely. Just especially looking at, Cooper, Ridley, or Allen. I'd go, no, I could probably afford to go with Gibbs and take the shot there. Round 9 with Charbonnet, no, there's somebody else I got my eye on, but I like Charbonnet as a player, and I can see how that's cool. I would probably be going Gibbs, and of course I'd be going with Spears in round 14. He could prove to be the best value if injuries occur, but that's a big if. All right, so now we're talking best value with tight ends. We got Waller at round 6, Evan Engram in round 8, Pat Freirmuth in round 9, and Dalton Kincaid in round 11.
I mean, first it's Gibbs, now it's Waller. You might as well just blow in my ear if you're trying to woo me here about Matt Waldman. I mean, this is I'm totally feeling Darren Waller, right? I mean, not just, the past history of his high-end production. Look, we all know he has to avoid injury, and we all know that he has not the last couple of years. But when healthy in Las Vegas, I mean, I can remember 2020, 145 target season. And not to overstate, what we saw in the exhibition game over the weekend, where clearly Daniel Jones has an eye on him. But just talking to the local beat writers, I mean, like, these guys can sometimes glom onto players, and they play their favorites and stuff. But just the overall glowing talk. The latest I talked to over late last week was Ryan Dunleavy at the New York Post, who said he's unguardable, he's unstoppable in practice. That nobody can keep up with him. And also Brian Daboll's history of making use of these kind of playmakers and putting them in advantageous situations to create mismatches, etc. To me, it's all Waller all day. All these guys are fine. But I don't even see those other names on the list. As soon as I see the list, Waller is the only name I see.
Well, Bob, you're cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs for Waller. I'm definitely cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs for Dalton Kincaid.
I know.
In round 11, I'd take him in round 10 and follow it with Chigo Okonkwo in round 11 or round 12, and those would be my 2 tight ends, and I'll be happy because in round 6, if I can get Lockett, I'll take Lockett over Waller. I'd probably take Aiyuk over Waller. I'd probably take Waller over Kincaid. But that's just me. Engram and Ingram's not bad, but round 8, there's probably other players I'm a little more interested in. Same with Freirmuth. I could see them splitting with with Washington.
Yeah.
To the point that it becomes a little bit of a disappointment. But Kincaid to me has top 3 upside in round 10, round 11. And he's going to be used more like a wide receiver, and he might give you Waller-like value, even if he's less experienced. I think he's actually better coming out than what Waller is. Waller has been. So we shall see.
Sacrilege.
Yes. But you know what? That's all right. That's why I'm here, to be sacrilegious about this stuff. So Mahomes, Allen, Hurts in round 2. Would you go with that grouping, one of those guys, or would you go Burrow and Lamar Jackson in round 3 as one of those options? Or would you be targeting Herbert, Fields in round 4, or Deshaun, Dak, and Tua in round 9? Or are you going later rounds and doing Daniel Jones, Geno-Rodgers round 10? If you had to say, this is my quarterback 1, are you going in round 2 with the group, round 3 with the group, round 4, round 9, or round 10? Or later?
I would do all these fucking things, Matt Waldman, and I have done all these things. If I'm in a single draft and the decision comes down, I think the thing I've done the most of would probably be the Deshaun, Dak, Tua round 9 range, and probably back them up with one of the Jones, Geno-Rodgers in round 10.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I do that a lot. I come back and pair if I wait towards the double-digit rounds to do that. Look, man, you can't not make an argument for the Mahomes, Allen, Hurts tier, right?
Yeah.
You can make a really strong argument for the Burrow, Jackson tier. I can make an equally strong argument. So here's how I've been feeling this since last year. If you're in a draft and you get to a point where you don't love the skill position players, like there isn't someone there that just makes you say, boom, I got to smash that button. There's a quarterback there you can love, right? At pretty much every range. And I think just the premise of this feel it or fuck it item here is indicative of that, right? Just like there's going to be a flavor of the day for you waiting at the point that you feel like quarterback is going to be a value. So for me, I'd probably do them just to answer the question, it's been a lot of Deshaun and Tua, to be honest with you. In round 9 seems like the right price, followed up with a Jones, Geno, especially if it's Tua, where I feel like I'm at a little bit of a risk.
Yeah, in a home league or in a league with guys I know that aren't in the industry, I'm probably going the same route. In an industry draft, I am probably flipping the bird and saying fuck you to all the analysts who are waiting around so that they in the chat room they can talk about how smart their strategy was, and we all do it, and I can and I would end up going with either round 2 or round 3's guys with Mahomes, Allen, Hurts, or Burrow, Jackson, because they'll all be telling me about how dumb I was to take Kincaid in round 10 or 11.
It was pretty stupid, man.
It was, but I've been stupid for 20 years at this, so I would say I'm still around. So I must be lucky. So I look at it that way. But that might be the route that I would go. So best risk reward out of these 3 people that have, fantasy GMs, kind of pulling their hair out if they're even thinking about them at all. Michael Thomas in round 8, Kadarius Toney in round 9, or Odell Beckham in round 10. Who has the best risk reward?
I want to say that, it's Kadarius Toney. If you see him on the field, when he's on the field, he is unlike many players, right? He is a unique talent with unique physical capabilities that set him apart from pretty much everybody. I think Michael Thomas is probably the one I have the more shares of.
Me too.
Because I feel like I've been getting him a little bit later. I don't expect 2019 Michael Thomas any more than I expect, 2013 Josh Gordon to come rushing out of the wings to claim a major role somewhere. But if you look at his start last year, it was pretty solid, right? While he was still healthy, had a couple touchdowns to open the season, and and I think Derek Carr can take advantage of these kind of players. But the best, I guess if he's maybe the best, but the riskiest and the highest reward is definitely, to me, Kadarius Toney.
Yeah, I would say that's definitely like the both ends of the spectrum is Toney. I'm rolling with Thomas too. He looked great when he was on the field from the fourth quarter of that Buccaneers game. For the next 2 games before he got hurt.
Yep.
But he's been healthy through camp, knocking on some wood here and hoping that or knocking on, there you go, there's your dome right there. There we go. We can knock on that. But I would say, yeah, I'm rolling with Thomas. I can't quit Michael Thomas. He's too good of a football player. I love Odell Beckham's skill set, but don't trust the knee. Right. And Toney, yeah, I mean, I'm a Toney stan this year, and I'll roll with that if there's an opportunity. But Dalton Kincaid sitting there, if he's not there, if somebody takes him early and Toney falls to me, I'll take Toney there and then follow up with a Chig, and especially somebody else a little bit later too. All right, so best value out of these running backs: Rashad Penny in round 9, Samaje Perine in round 9, or Khalil Herbert in round 9.
So if I trust the beat writers I've talked to for the most part, it's Penny. But there are questions about all this. Hub Arkush from Pro Football Weekly, who is not a hot take artist, told me a couple weeks ago that what he saw in camp was Deonta Foreman clearly the running back 1 in Chicago. I don't think anyone else has said that. And so, but also Hub is not unknowledgeable, right? So, sure. So even if I'm not like buying into the notion that Deonta Foreman is a true number 1, there's enough buzz around Roschon Johnson and Foreman's presence for it not to be Herbert. Samaje Perine, decreasingly so. Maybe 2 months ago he would have been easily the guy I'm feeling here. Now I'm kind of fucking because Javonte Williams is apparently the exception to the rule. We'll see about that. I want to overstate the case there, but the fact that Javonte Williams is on the field carrying the football in exhibition play after tearing 3 ligaments in his knee is pretty remarkable. So don't know that I'm trusting that, but I'm feeling like the momentum's there. And so almost by process of elimination, it's Penny, who, by the way, is very good. Will be running behind the best offensive line in football. And I know we read a lot of things into the preseason playing time rotations of players. Maybe we should not read as much into that. I'm going to go with the information I've had more consistently since his arrival, is that he's likely the early down guy there, and we'll see how it plays out. Round 9, if I miss, I'll probably survive.
Yeah, I think probably will too. I'll probably go Herbert, Perine, Penny in that order because I think Herbert's the best pure runner.
I agree with that.
And then Perine, I think, is just a good all-around player who they will find a role for. And I'm worried about Williams still just that, getting over the hurdle of trusting it fully. I think he'll probably get spelled a fair bit. But
let me do this.
All right.
Let me say this. I disagree with you on the best pure runner. I mean, if we go back to Rashad Penny, his magical span, the 6-game span in 2021, was it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
he was great.
He looks like he might be a really good back, but also the offensive line. I'm gonna stick with my order. But I do think Herbert. That's why it was kind of interesting what Hub Arkush said about Foreman, who's seems kind of like a guy, right? Less so than, and maybe Herbert is more than just a guy. So maybe I'll go with my order. I'll go with Penny, Herbert, and Perine.
That's cool. Yeah. We'll disagree on this one, but Penny certainly at the top of his game. If he plays in a gap-oriented offense, he's great. He's probably the best gap runner of those 3. The best all-around runner to me is still Herbert, but Penny certainly is the most explosive out of those 3, or was. He didn't look all that explosive Friday night.
No, he did.
But we'll see. Most likely a mirage. Rashad White at round 6. James Cook in round 7, or Antonio Gibson in round 8.
Fuck all these guys. I want to say Rachaad White, just because I don't know if the offense is going to be supportive. I mean, I think all these guys have big mirage factors.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna take the smart route and say Antonio Gibson. Seems like he's been rising more. I do think his skill set. I mean, I guess what we do, Matt, or I think what I do for sure, is we see an offense come to a new team. Like we're seeing Eric Bieniemy bring this Chiefs offense, and we're going to say, this is the new that, right? Like, here he is. Antonio Gibson's suddenly going to be late season Jerick McKinnon because we want that to happen. I don't know that that's going to happen. I mean, Antonio Gibson's been a good receiver or a receiving asset since he arrived. Why haven't they used him like that? I mean, maybe they'll suddenly use him like that. Maybe we're overlooking Brian Robinson, though, who last season fared pretty well for a guy who got shot in the knee 6 weeks before the season started, who says this year, you ain't seen nothing yet. So I'm gonna probably go with Antonio Gibson here.
Yeah, that's the real answer, is that maybe you should be targeting Brian Robinson where you can get him at a value.
A little later.
Yeah. Rachaad White to me is probably, Gibson's the smart mirage based on track record. Rachaad White, I like what you said in the beginning. He's my mirage. I think that because of the offense, and from what I saw last year, he can catch, but he's kind of a Kalen Ballage type in terms of how people are seeing him. They're all excited, but we'll see if that works out. Best value among these tight ends: Sam Laporta in round 12, Irv Smith round 14, Dawson Knox round 16, Tyler Conklin round 17.
It's totally Tyler Conklin.
Yeah.
17.
Yes.
I mean, it absolutely is. I like all these. I think all these guys are fair prices, but Tyler Conklin, totally the forgotten piece after demonstrating last year that he should not be forgotten. Now probably has a better quarterback, a quarterback who has over the course of his career created household names out of nobodies at tight end. I'll go with this nobody named Tyler Conklin.
Tyler Conklin is the gangster move for your late rounds in the drafts. I mean, if you don't want to pick a tight end, that's the guy to do it right there. And I know there's a lot of late round tight end talk. I think Josh Norris likes doing the hashtag late round tight end on Twitter right now. And he's talking about a bunch of guys. And one of them is James Ferguson, who I like, the Wisconsin kid, second year in Dallas. But Tyler Conklin's the dude. That's the one that I think if you're gonna do this, you make that pick right there. But
which means you could still get Sam Laporta in 12.
Yes.
Or Irv Smith in 14.
Yep.
I mean, you can do all those. I mean, all these things are doable.
Yeah.
Dawson Knox? No. I'd even do him at 16.
I'd probably go in order of likelihood to produce well. I would probably say Conklin and Laporta are almost a tie. I would put Knox slightly over Smith just because I don't trust Smith to stay healthy or to do well. And just based on his track record. I love what he did coming out of school, but it just seems like he hasn't translated. And I think there might be something more there going on. Yeah. So, look, we have good offense here too, and we're good at offending one another when we have an opportunity. But we didn't do that this week. But I know. But I tried doing it the past couple weeks, trying to get your replacement, but there were too many people coming up to you at the expo, saying feel it or fuck it. So I guess Bob Harris is around for another week.
Yes.
He would probably be around for all the weeks, and I'd be the one off the show, but I'm the one producing it. So I'm hanging in just by a technicality. But on that note, thanks again for listening, everybody. We really appreciate it, and we will see you next week.
Love you. Goodbye.
Love you. Goodbye.